Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shay Ryan Douglas, and I'm really excited today. I have a special guest in the name of Bobeden, who has a wonderful life story to share with us all. He is a part of the Brave New Life Community Network, and he's done some phenomenal things in his life, from being a muso at Woodford Folk Festival for many years, and as well as being open to share some vulnerable truths about his experiencing with overcoming and resolving these deeper states of depression, anxiety, and looking at how we can actually use this story in a way that is empowering, inspiring, and life-changing for those who also may be experiencing these deeper, denser emotions, which is a normal part of life, and maybe on a heightened experience for many people around the world, given the circumstances that's going on, with some challenges arising every day for all of us. And so I just really wanted to welcome you, Bob. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing this powerful message with the world right now. I really appreciate. We get together every Monday to have a community conversation around feeling-based relating, which Bob is a really integral part of that community and is always open in sharing his heartfelt messages, and it's bringing tremendous wisdom, a great insight and perspective after many years of experience. Bob, I just wanted to invite you to maybe just share, your story with our viewers today.
Well, why am I here? Why am I here? What's driving me? Every 40 seconds, somebody dies because of depression, and they do not have to. And I am living testimony to that. And I won't go too much in depth to my story because I've already done that. It's out there. It's on Brave New Life. If anybody wants to know the intimate details of my story, I had a very abusive childhood. But I went back and healed the wounds of my childhood and deprogrammed myself from all the conditioning that I got. And on the other side, my life is awesome because I am master and commander of this life that I do create, and I take full responsibility for it. And but and I've been pushing the message of gifted depression for about 7 or 8 years now, on over 200 radio interviews and many interviews like this. So my story, if anybody wants to know the minutiae, just Google the gift of depression, Bobeden, and I recently did an interview with Tom Barnett that really goes into a lot of detail. But what I would really like to focus on is the title of this interview, and that is The End of Depression. And I'll drop a bomb here because for me, and I've been researching this since my first panic attack in 1984, and I've got an amazing intellect, but I never went to university. Thank God I didn't spend all those extra years in indoctrination, but that's another story. Yeah. But what I would like to do is just, I can now understand from my knowing, I know for me why depression rates are rising, suicide rates are rising. And I'd just like to share with you the understanding that I have, explicitly saying that this is just my story, because after all, we are all Sioux. We're all sovereign, unique, and equal. And I will never claim to speak for anybody else. So I'll remind you where I'm coming from. I'm just here to kiss Sioux. Keep it simple. Sovereign and Sioux, we are all sovereign, unique, and equal. So I'll go back to about the 1930s. And at that time, the Rothschilds kind of owned the banking system. The Rothschilds and their enclave. They owned the banking system. They owned the oil industry. And because they owned the oil industry, they owned the petrochemical industry. And because they owned the petrochemical industry, they owned the pharmaceutical industry, because all pharmaceuticals are petrochemicals. But they also took control of the education or indoctrination system, and also the health system, or what is now, truthfully, a disease management system. So going back to my experience and things you've talked about often, Shay, is our essential nature of being. What is our essential nature of being? And I was an essential natural being up until about the age of 2 years old. That was when I was magnificent. The world was a magical place. I was totally in the flow and in the moment. And then the arrows began. So you might not want to call this story just another game of bows and arrows. So from about the age of 2, through my abusive childhood, I lost the belief in myself. You know, my parents were telling me one thing, but my intuition was telling me another thing. And then my school was telling me one thing, but my intuition was telling me another thing. But because of the abuse, I gave away my belief in myself at a very early age, probably about 4 years old. And so that was the first arrow into my soul, if you like, into my heart. But I was young and strong and carried on. And then growing up, and you can look around at any toddler who's magical and wonderful. But by the time they're 6, 7, or 8, the magic's beaten out of them. You know, they're just walking around and doing as they're told and not being very creative, and just numbed out. Anyway, so that loss of the belief in myself, that was the first arrow and the first little pain. But I carried that pain for many years. And what I've noticed since the 1950s is more and more, as more and more of our freedoms and rights and natural attributes that we were born with to live freely on this planet have been taken away. Every right that's been taken away, every sense of freedom that's been taken away from me is just another arrow into my soul, into my heart. And so time goes on, until I sort of woke up realizing that everything I've been taught, everything I hold as truth, everything I believe is just a lie. And I was so angry, so very angry. Now, I've been listening to lots of people talking about depression and mental illness, and there is a way through, but most of the people that I've seen being interviewed have not actually experienced depression, and the pain of depression was very real. It's a result of all those arrows that were fired at my soul. And so I'm really grateful to Shay for allowing me to share the story of somebody that has actually worked through depression. And I came to the realization that depression is not an illness, it's a wound of the soul. I was born into a corrupt society, and for me to be able to function in this dysfunctional society, some way I had to deal with this pain. So when I had my first panic attack, and I was still in the matrix, in the left brain, I went to a doctor and he said, "Oh, you've got depression, take these drugs." And yeah, they worked because they numbed me down so that I couldn't feel the pain of not living a beautiful and joyous and free life, and that I could fit in with society. And so, you know, I took antidepressants for probably about 20 years, but come to realize that they're a self-fulfilling prophecy. They even tell you on the little label in the packet, can produce feelings of anxiety and suicide. And my realization was, well, this is a no-brainer. You know, these guys don't want cures, they want customers. And with that realization, I just threw my medications away about 8, 9, 10 years ago and went cold turkey, and came to the realization that what I was afraid of was the immense power of the feelings that I was having. They were overwhelming. And so I went through a 2-week period of just letting all these trapped emotions, these trapped feelings, vomit out. I was on my boat, which is a great place to do it because there's nobody around. Like, if I went through that in a supermarket, they'd throw me in the loony bin. But yeah, I got all those feelings out. And so now I really do understand why more and more people are getting depressed. And this COVID exercise is just another example. That's probably another 6 arrows into the soul of each loving human being. Because more and more freedoms are being stripped away. You know? And like, if you don't make a stand and go in and do the work and reclaim your belief in yourself, then this monster is just going to roll over you. And it just makes sense to me, Shay, because the evolution of consciousness is exponential. Do we agree on that? Yeah. Looks like it. And so we've just turned the corner in the evolution of consciousness. So if consciousness is evolving exponentially, everything else is. And so depression, suicide, everything, even wisdom, is evolving exponentially. And so we're at the turning point now, and we are 8 years into the age of integrity. And so it all fits the big picture. You know, there is meant to be an increase in the pain of humanity until more and more people, more and more loving human beings experience that pain and going to say, well, this is not my pain. Where's it coming from? And it's coming from, you're not living your truth anymore. You know, you're not standing up for your inalienable, God-given birthrights. You're just rolling over. But I take great solace because when I look around the world, more and more people are standing up. They're speaking the truth, and in that way, very soon we'll reach critical mass, and the tipping point will happen. I am living my dream. I'm living my truth, and I'm just a simple bloke. And if I can do it, anybody can. But I had to silence the mind and just listen to my heart and obey my body. The further we have moved away from nature, the more corrupt our society has become. And then the way most people deal with that corruption is to medicate the pain that it brings into their lives. So I'm open to questions now.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Bob. I really appreciate your insight, having lived experience in this particular topic. And one thing I'm curious to ask you is, if someone is, potentially moving through tougher times right now, if they're having these feelings of anxiety and depression and not quite sure how to navigate it or identify and associate these feelings to this experience. What's your suggestion in a way that people can become aware and resolve some of these deeper parts to themselves that might be challenging? I'll give you a moment to think of it, and while you're before you share your answer, I just wanted to acknowledge those joining in right now and watching this live broadcast. We've got see Lillian Montez. She says, "Thank you, Bob, for sharing." I agree, Bob. Your story is quite powerful. We've got another Facebook user who says, "Mind awakening topic. I can recall to your story, Mr. Bob. Greetings from Sweden." And lastly, Karina Swings, sending loving blessings. So I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in. Please like this video if you get something out of it. Leave us a comment. Let us know if you have any questions. We'd be happy to discuss them and share them. Otherwise, Bob, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this one, to give a little bit of empowerment back to the people if they also find themselves in a challenging situation as you have navigated out of.
Well, for me, it all comes back to personal responsibility. Taking responsibility for my life. I am master and commander of my life, and I take full responsibility for that. And so what I would say to everybody is, how long are you going to live in pain, and what are you willing to sacrifice to live in paradise, to live your dream, to live your truth, to live your passion? Are you content to give all that away for a weekly pay packet? Now, if you are, fair enough, it's your choice. But in my journey, I lost everything. I lost my career, I lost my wife, my kids, everything. And Cyclone Debbie in 2017 took away my home and everything I possessed. But in my own journey, and I've even bet my own life on trusting my inner tuition, and I'll share that if you're interested later. I'm content with me, you know. For me, freedom is an inside job. Just look at the animal kingdom. Every other species on this planet is busy working away, earning their existence, if you like. But their jobs just really are feeding themselves, breeding, and looking after the environment. And none of these creatures' jobs are leading them to mass suicide. It's only humanity that has this belief that they've got to work, produce, consume to be of value. Now, for me, I'm a human being, not a human doing. I don't have to do anything to justify my existence on this magnificent planet and the Whitsunday Islands, which is just paradise on earth, you know. I don't have to do anything. Just being me is enough. So I'm content with me, and I have nothing to prove. You know, I'm not in competition. So, you know, stop competing with everybody. We're here to work in common unity, in harmony. Yeah. So if anybody's struggling, that's the question you want to ask yourself. Am I willing to continue living with this pain? Or am I brave enough to go within and find my own truth? Because I have found all of my solutions, and that's S-O-U-L, that's a Bob word. I found all my solutions within my heart. So that's the challenge, I believe. People, you just got to find a way to listen to your heart. trust your body, because your body knows what it needs, always, because your body is still connected to nature. You can survive without the left brain. I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, I love it, man. That's great, and I really resonate with this message of, you know, going within, journeying deep within your heart, deep within your spirit, and listening to that intuitive guidance that our body innately knows how to return to. It's like it just re-enabling that natural instinct as animals, as you spoke to. And we've just received a comment here from another Facebook user I wanted to acknowledge, saying, finding happiness in small things and learning to appreciate what lives give you. Love yourself the way you are. Everything happens for a reason. That's really powerful. And Karina's also just popped in a little question. She said, my dear friend's daughter, who is in her 30s, is hearing voices that are telling her very terrible things. I wonder how I can help her. And that's a really great question, because I would love your perspective on this, Bob. It seems that, like you said, when we listen and we journey within, we listen to our hearts, as you spoke to, it seems to be telling us messages all the time. If there is, an unpractice of listening and understanding and aligning our path, our truth, and our message with these so-called messages that are coming through from our heart, from our higher spirit, how do we navigate that process, or how did you navigate it in resolving through your experience, resolving anything that was unresolved in the emotional, energetic, feeling body, to be able to come to the place you are now, to become complete, connected, and whole with these parts of yourself? What does that process look like from your experience?
Yeah, my immediate response is going back to Sue. We're all sovereign, unique, and equal. And so that lady's question was, how can she help her daughter? Well, the best way really is just to acknowledge how beautiful, wonderful, and majestic her daughter is, and not buy into the fear porn, because those fears do not come from the heart. They come from the wound. They come from the wound. And so for me, what worked was going back and healing the wounds of my childhood, because that was when all the damage was done between the ages of 2 and 7 or 8, because that's where it's all laid in. So I can't fix anybody. Nobody can. It's the hero's journey. And it may sound harsh, it may sound brutal or blunt, but for me, it's the truth. I can't heal anybody. All I can do is let my own light shine, and share my story. So, yeah, that's my answer to that. Sorry, it wasn't more uplifting.
I really appreciate your perspective there, Bob. It seems that this imprinting period, which a lot of doctors speak to, particularly one as an example I could use is Dr. Bruce Lipton, who I've spoken with in person, who really speaks to this developmental stage of our consciousness in our brain and our bodies as younglings, and how we can really be impacted from our environment in a really positive, loving way, or in potentially a more damaging, unresolved emotional way. And it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from you, Bob, that experience has to do with, the abusive childhood that you had, that you spoke to, and how that had repeated in your life over and over again until you were willing to sit with it and bring it back home to the heart, resolve it, look at it from a new perspective, and enable yourself to realize that you are now not a victim of your past, but choosing to be a creator of your destiny moving forward. And it's powerful to witness you and hear you share this story. So now that you don't feel that a victim of this world, but you have empowered yourself with the knowing, the wisdom that you are loved, you are whole, and you are really grounded in that connection, that you have resolved this in a way that you feel has the potential to be a catalyst for shifting the minds and perspectives of others to realize within themselves that they too are a unique, beautiful, sovereign individual, as you mentioned, and they're on their own journey of witnessing their journey and exploring their life. So it seems to me what you're sharing is this process of self-inquiry, self-reflection, introspection, of looking deeper within. What is it within me that feels anything that might be hindering or holding me back, that might be limiting me in my life? And how or where, what is the root cause of this circumstance that I can really reevaluate and look at in my life? Is this serving me to move forward, or am I willing to let go and move on and realize that this is a gift for me to use in a way that I can support humanity through my experience and my perspective? And I just wanted to really just thank you for sharing, Bob. It's a powerful message that you bring to this world, particularly in this time. And
Well,
is there anything else you feel to share?
yeah, I could go on for weeks, but doing the inner child work, I became very accustomed to going back and sitting in that space, you know. And one of the questions I asked myself was, what's my earliest memory of me no longer believing in myself? And so with that question, I went back to my childhood, and it came back as clear as day. I was about 4 3/4 years old. It was a Sunday morning. I got up and brushed my teeth and combed my hair, put on my red t-shirt and bounced down to breakfast, sat at the table, and Mum said, "Bobby, go upstairs and put on your blue t-shirt because you love your blue t-shirt." So I stood up, confused, thinking, well, no, I love my red t-shirt. That's why I put it on. But I can't argue with Mum, because she's Mum, and she's very violent, and she's about 80 foot tall. So I went up and took my red t-shirt off and put my blue t-shirt on. And that is my earliest recollection of me no longer believing in myself. And just like trust and virginity, once it's broke through half of my adult life, no longer believing in myself and believing what other people told me. Like the psychiatrist said, "You're clinically depressed, you need to take these drugs to fit in." What a lot of bullshit that was. Yeah, so that was my first recollection. But by going back and healing the wounds of my childhood, I reclaimed my belief in me, because I am unique. And if I am unique, I am the only expert on my life. You know? And another pivotal moment I'd like to share is, and it ties into believing in myself, I totally trust my inner tuition, and I've actually bet my life on trusting my inner tuition. And it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I was out on my boat, Fidelio, in Pioneer Bay. It was about 7:30 at night, and up in the tropics it's dark, you know, by 7:30. And I was just sitting down below, naked, as you do. Well, I did, living on a boat in the tropics, no neighbours, bugger them, you know. And I'm just on the laptop there on my dog's Barnaby's Facebook page. And all of a sudden the lights went dim. And I couldn't breathe. But I looked over at the voltmeter, 12.8 volts, says okay. And I couldn't breathe. And I don't know if, Shay, if you've been in any near-death experiences, but I've had many. And time becomes irrelevant. It just seems to freeze. And so I'm sitting there pondering what to do, and I just typed into Facebook, hey guys, if I don't type anything in the next 20 minutes, can you get Volunteer Marine Rescue to come out and get Barnaby? Because I thought, well, if I cark it tonight, well, after he's eaten me, he's going to starve to death. So that was my concern. And again, I couldn't breathe. And just here, at the edge of my vision, there was this black silky wispiness that, you know, I just could not bring into full focus. And I thought, oh no, hello old friend. I thought, it's all over, Red Rover, the Grim Reaper's come to get me. And so I could have typed in, hey guys, send the water police, send the ambos, I think I'm having a stroke. But I just sat with my body and just let my body do what it wanted to do. So my body took me up the companionway, out onto the open deck. I looked up at the sky and there were 2 full moons. The bay I was in, Pioneer Bay, surrounded by mangrove trees where crocodiles live. It's after dark when crocodiles and sharks feed. But I just threw myself into the bay and then lay back like a great big starfish, and then all of a sudden there was a and I could breathe again. And that was the night I consciously chose to bet my life on trusting my inner tuition. That was my rite of passage. Okay, end of story.
Beautiful, Bob. Thanks for sharing, man. I really appreciate that you're willing to just drop into these vulnerable moments and share the realness and be raw with it. I want to acknowledge Jesse Romero just coming through saying hi. And I had a similar experience. It was a very dark day and had some paranormal things happen to me. It's a really interesting topic and probably one we could definitely dive deep into in another episode around near-death experiences and what that is like for people, because I'm super curious as to what happens after death, what happens after life, because it seems that most people have no idea. And it's the fear that holds us back from actually living our lives as it is, in the fear of dying. And maybe potentially, if we're able to fully comprehend and befriend the depths of what happens in the darkness of death, it might bring light to the life that we get to live as human beings. And I just got another comment coming through. Jabaru says hello. She says, I've had a couple of near-death experiences as well and would be happy to share. That is a great idea, Jabaru. I'd love to have that conversation with you as well. But just to keep it relevant to the topic of ending depression, the end of depression, as we've titled this conversation with Bob Eden, who has experience in this. I'm just curious, what does it take for us as a collective to fully end these feelings of depression? Is that even possible?
Definitely, absolutely, definitely, without a doubt. I know within the silence of my heart, I found a place I call my knowing, and my knowing has no words, and that's where I'm speaking from. I'm just a simple bloke, and I've sown a seed, and the seed will blossom and grow. If I can get to this place, then anybody can. And as I said earlier, how much pain are you willing to endure instead of going within and finding your true self? As John Bradshaw said, the greatest sin of anyone is not to become all that they were born to be. Right. And if you have not experienced your death, your own death, how can you really appreciate life? Now you know why I'm so bouncy, so joyous. What am I grateful for? The next breath. My next breath. That's what I'm grateful for. So, and it is a hero's journey. You know, that night on the boat, I had no choice. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. And so, you know, if I'd have let that continue, I would have died. But I just let go of the left brain, just sat with my heart and my body knew what to do. And that's all it is. That's all it is. Why support a corrupt society? And this society was dying. Every empire comes to an end, you know, and all this insanity that's going on is just the beast knows it's dying, and it's just becoming more and more desperate in its final death throes. So for me, everything is unfolding perfectly. Just believe in yourself. That's all you got to do. Believe in yourself.
Exactly, Bob. I love your message, man. It's just super powerful. I just want to thank you for your time today and opening up this conversation and supporting others on their journey to realize the responsibility that it takes to go on the hero's journey and how to really resolve any of these, core wounds from our child and mapping that out and exploring within. It's a really powerful message that you bring into the world, brother. I appreciate you and your commitment to doing the work internally and being open enough to share that in a vulnerable space. Also, just wanted to thank everyone who's been tuning in to the comments and has been watching. We thank you for joining us in this conversation. If you have any questions, please just write them in the comments. Otherwise, we really appreciate if you shared this video, if you liked it, and we look forward to the Monday community conversation. If anyone would like to join the Brave New Life community, you're welcome to sign up and join us, where we share on feeling-based relating. We drop into the heart space and just open up to be real, be raw, and share what's really relevant for us.
I'd just like to close with one statement, Shay.
Sure.
I love dropping bombs. There is no such thing as mental illness. We have been lied to. The pain that is experienced is a growing pain, but they don't want us to grow. We can talk about that another time.
Powerful. Thanks, Bob.
See you, mate. Thanks a lot.
See you guys. Thanks. Bye for now.